Springtime is my favourite time of year. It's wonderful, isn't it? You get out in the garden, the flowers are out, the sun comes, it's a little bit warmer, we can go out for walks in the countryside. It's a really great time of year. In fact, it's probably my favourite. And it's my favourite for another reason as well, because Christians around the world at this time of year start to celebrate the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The newness of life that comes with springtime makes us think of the newness of life that equally comes in the death and resurrection of Jesus and the hope it gives us. Of course, that can be a little bit of a problem as well, because a survey this last week that was posted on the BBC website indicates that in the UK, a quarter of Christians say that the resurrection didn't literally happen. Interestingly, quite a number of non-religious people said they actually believe the Easter story, you just mustn't take everything literally. And that's maybe the paradox of the 21st century scientific worldview that we live in. And yet even the scientists struggle both with the complexity of nature and the DNA code and the genome and all of that. In fact, I was reading very recently a book by Francis Collins, The Language of God. He was a man that was an atheist. He was a scientist, he was a chemist, he then went to study medicine, and in studying medicine he came in contact with Christians, with elderly Christians that were dying, that had terminal diseases, and those people were so positive at the end of their life that it had a big influence on him. And so even as one of the scientists that was decoding the human genome, he came to the conclusion that God was a significant part of it, and that's why he called his book The Language of God. Now, he and I may have some differences on how we apply that fully into the tale of creation and intelligent design and those kinds of areas, but nevertheless the scientific worldview does not take away from the power of God as the creator and God as the redeemer. And so in the context of the newness of spring and creation and resurrection, I remind you of the words of the Apostle Paul, another man that had to have a dramatic change in his faith with his Damascus Road experience, a man who was dead against Christianity, who would challenge any evidence that there had ever been a resurrection, and yet post-conversion and then post-studying for a considerable period of time to make sure that the story was correct. He tells the Christians in Rome that without the resurrection, God is without power. Romans 1 and verse 4, who through the Spirit of holiness was appointed the Son of God in power by his resurrection. Who tells the church in Corinth, and I mean that was a church with problems, but he says in all of this, if there isn't a resurrection, our faith is foolishness. And for me, like Francis Collins, I've met those Christians who are going through struggles in their lives, and yet who have such faith, such dependence in God, that it makes the difference. And it's the same for me as well. I may not understand everything about science, I may not understand everything about nature, I don't even understand everything about the Bible. But what I do understand is that I have got a God who cares about me, who wants a relationship with me, who loves me enough that he died for me, and who is powerful enough that he rose again. And that is what I'm celebrating this weekend.